with a little bit of a summary of what happened thus far. Those of you who are here for chapter 10 summary, you will hear some familiar things again, but for everybody else, I will repeat. Then I will get into a verse by verse summary of ninth chapter, and I'll give certain sections of verses that show the flow of thought. And as I had done before in another summary, I have gotten questions. And those questions I will answer if they are relevant or if they are related to the actual meaning of the verse. I will cover those questions as I go through the chapter. Because some of these questions just have to do with a sharper, clearer understanding of the verse itself. If there's a somewhat unrelated question, then I'll cover it at the end. And then, of course, as we finish, if there's extra time, then I invite any and all questions that you may have. So let us begin. So I had said this before, but I am recapping again for those who were not there that day, that Bhagavad Gita is split into three sections of six, six, and six chapters. And in the Bhashya by Sri Madhusudana Saraswati ji, called Gudhartha Deepika, these six chapters are given a theme. The first six chapters are given the theme of karma. The second six, the theme of upasana or bhakti. And the last six, the theme of jnanam. In other words, if we take the Mahavakya Tat Tvam Asi, the first six chapters are Tvam Pradhana, the individual, the jiva. What is the jiva to do? That's why we get karma yoga, dhyana yoga, and all of these practical. What do we do? How do we understand our own self? What is the condition of ourself? Right from Arjuna Sthiti all the way to realization. How the jiva actually is Atman. This is understood in the first six chapters. In the middle six chapters, it is Tat Pradhan. So who is that Tat? What is that Ishvara? How is the nature of Ishvara to be Brahman? What is the actual nature of that infinite Lord when expressed as the Lord of the universe, the totality? So there are two words, Vyashti and Samashti, the individual and the total. Individual is covered in the first six chapters, and the total is covered in the second six chapters. So what happens in the last six chapters is Asi is covered. Asi. That Aikya, that oneness between that Tat and that Tvam, between Jiva and Ishvara, is covered in the last six chapters. That's why the last six chapters are also Jnana Pradhana. So this is a brief overview of Bhagavad Gita as a whole. Ninth chapter falls in the middle of the Tat Pradhana section, or the section that focuses mostly on bhakti as a means to realization, bhakti as a means to that ultimate knowledge. So what happens in the ninth chapter is the ninth chapter follows very closely the thought flow of the seventh chapter, Jnana Vijnana Yoga. So in seventh chapter, we are given the knowledge and also the direct experience of that knowledge, which is the vision of I am that Brahman. And that knowledge is expanded here with a vision of who is that one that I am gaining knowledge about? Who is that Ishvara whose knowledge I'm trying to establish in my own heart as myself? So it starts, now we'll get into the actual summary. The first three verses are what is called technically as Shrotra Abhimukhi Karanam, making the listener available for the knowledge. This happens in every single chapter. When I had done chapter 10, when I had done chapter 4, all of this, in every single chapter, there are some verses in which Bhagavan Shri Krishna glorifies his own knowledge. He says, see how beautiful this knowledge is. I'm going to tell you something. Now pay attention. So he says, for in the first verse, I will tell you jnanam along with vijnanam. I'll give you the knowledge, the theory, along with vijnanam, how to realize and actualize that knowledge in ourselves, as ourselves. This is something we have to be very clear about because what is going on in this book is just jnanam. We have to get from jnanam to vijnanam. And that's why the rest of the chapter is there. There's some sadhana I have to do to get from that theoretical knowledge here and bring it here to my heart to experience. So that is what Bhagavan says, I will tell you. And he describes, now he gives the title of the chapter, Raja Vidya Raja Guhyam. He glorifies this knowledge as as Gurudev says, the royal knowledge and the royal secret. What does this mean? Raja Guhyam. Guhyanam Raja, of all secrets. This is the king of all secrets. What does it mean? Well, all of us are studying it. Is it really that secret? Well, yes. Manushyanam sahasreshu kaschit yadati siddhaye. Of all thousands and thousands, millions of people on earth, how many people get to study Brahma Vidya? Very, very few. Extremely few. This is one way to look at it. The other way to see Guhyanam Raja is to see even when it is taught, even when Brahma Vidya is taught, how many people understand it? And even when they understand it, how many people realize it? Remember, Brahma Vidya is not something just to keep here as information. How many people get to the height of Brahma Vidya? In that way, also, it's secret. Sometimes people sit for years and years and years, and it never moves anywhere. The knowledge just stays right here. That is because this knowledge is really subtle. And this subtlety is what makes it very, very difficult to actualize. And that's also why it's quote unquote secret, because this secret kingdom of the self, which is the topic of Brahma Vidya, that is accessed by very, very few. So Guhyanam Raja. Now, Raja Vidya. Of course, we can say Vidyanam Raja. So of all knowledges, this is the king. You'll see this in the 10th chapter as well. It says Vidyanam Atma Vidya or Vidyanam Adhyatma Vidya Vidyanam. This, of all fields of knowledge in the world, this is the most kingly, this is the most divine, this is the greatest. Why? Because it promises us the absolute destruction of our sorrows and the permanent onset of happiness. No other knowledge can do that. No other knowledge can come to a stop like this. Anybody who has done any level of higher education learning will relate to this because you realize that, God, the material research just continues forever. There's no end. You study one molecule, you study its interaction with another molecule, and then you see how those two molecules help another molecule in the cell, and it's endless. It's endless. I saw all this when I was in college, and I was like, what is this all about? I want a stop to all this. Adhyatma Vidya, or this Raja Vidya, this knowledge of the self, this knowledge of Brahman, this knowledge actually does come to a completion, a fulfillment in realization. And that is why it is Vidyanam Raja. Of all knowledges, it is the king. This is also, you can say, Rajnyam Vidya, the knowledge of the kings, in the sense that when this knowledge has been in danger, it has been patronized by the wealthy, by the kings, by the kshatriyas of the time. There are many examples of this. Lord Krishna is also an example of this. So when it was in decline, then it'll come back up with some great avatar or something like that. It'll be protected. It'll be lifted and protected by kshatriyas who protect the Brahmana group of people. So that's another fun way to look at the word Raja Vidya, Raja Guhya. So Bhagavan says this is most purifying. This knowledge is, when it is clearly experienced, then it is full of nobility, dharmyam. And it is, most importantly, it is eternal. When this knowledge arises, then it has no end. So that's verse number 2. Now the question is, so that's the greatness of the knowledge of those who pursue it. What about those who do not pursue it? So then Bhagavan says, Ashraddhana Purushaha Dharmasyasya Parantapa Aprapyamam Nivartante Mrityu Samsara Vartmani. Those without faith in this knowledge, they don't approach this knowledge of the self. They don't gain me, aprapyamam, having not reached me, mrityu samsara vartmani. They are in this path of death and of samsara. Punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam, not coming closer to the self, they go round and round, round and round in this cycle of birth and death. And this is why he's saying, now Arjuna, pay attention. If you want to break this cycle, then please pay attention. This is a very valuable knowledge. And so the first section of glorification of the knowledge ends with this verse. Now comes very, very, very important section, verses 4 and 5. And of my 7 questions, 4 of the questions were about verses 4, 5, and 29. So I'm going to go a little bit in detail here because later on I can go a little faster for some of these verses, but I'm going to go in detail because this is extremely important to learn. What are these verses about? So those of you who were there for chapter 10, you will remember that I said that in every chapter, Bhagavan tells his tattva. In every chapter. He will give his nirguna tattva somewhere. You'll find it. And these are the 2 verses for chapter 9. But it's given in a most creative way, in a very fun way, where not only the nirguna tattva is given, there are 2 standpoints that are coming back and forth at once in these 2 verses. And if I give you with an example, then you will understand. So first, let's see what these 2 verses say, and I'll give you an example, and then everything will become clear. Okay. So the first statement Bhagavan makes in verse number 4 is Maya tatam idam sarvam jagat avyakta murtina. Idam jagat, this entire world, idam sarvam jagat, Maya avyakta murtina, by me in an unmanifest state, tatam, is pervaded. In essence, Bhagavan says, I pervade everything. I pervade the whole universe. That's statement number 1. I pervade everything. Okay. Then he says, Matsthani sarvabhutani. In me, Matsthani means Maisthani. In me, sarvabhutani are all beings in this world that you see. So everything of the world is in me. Okay? Okay, this makes sense. If Bhagavan pervades the world, then all beings are in him. Fine, it makes sense. Now he says, Aham teshu na avasthitaha. I am not in them. Okay, why? That's strange. We'll get to it. But this is statement number 3. Aham teshu na avasthita. I am not in them. And then he says something most wonderful. Nacha matsthani bhutani. Nothing is in me. Those beings are not in me. Okay, that's statement number 4. As you can see, statement number 2 and statement number 4 are directly opposing each other. What are they again? I will repeat. Matsthani sarvabhutani. All beings are in me. Nacha matsthani bhutani. Beings are not in me. And then very nicely, as if he's smiling, he says, Pashyame yogamaisharam. See my divine glory. See what an enigma I am, Arjuna. He's reveling in his own nature. It's so nice. So let's look at this with an example. All of you would have seen or have heard of the typical example of the rope and the snake, right? There's a rope. At night, you're walking. You mistake the rope for a snake. And then you look closer and then you realize, okay, oh wait, no, actually it was just a rope. There's a similar example that I prefer to use here because it's even more visually striking in this case, and this is how we were taught, which is of Mrigatrishnika, of the mirage on the desert. So let's look at each of these 4 statements with this example of the mirage and the desert. Let's say you approach the desert and suddenly you see a mirage. Okay. You will say, first, seeing the mirage, you will say the desert pervades the whole mirage. Correct? You don't have a mirage without the desert, right? The desert pervades the whole mirage. Step 1. Okay, then you'll say, every drop of water in that mirage is superimposed on the desert. Correct? All drops of water on the mirage actually are on the desert, right? So all the drops of water are in the desert. You can say all the drops of the mirage water are in the desert. Now we have to think, okay, the mirage may be in the desert, but is the desert in the mirage? No, this is statement number 3. Aham teshu na avasita. Bhagwan being the base, the support, the substratum, He is not in all the beings who exist on top of him, just as the desert is not one drop of that mirage water wets a single grain of sand in the real desert, correct? So that desert does not exist in the mirage. Two totally separate avasthas, totally different standards of reality. Okay, now we're at the level of the desert. Now let's just consider the desert. Let's just look at the desert. Is there any mirage? Actually, is there any mirage? No. In the final analysis, there really is no mirage in the desert. What are you talking about? It's just some light phenomena. We see a mirage, but there is actually no mirage. So that last statement, statement number 4, no beings are in me, is from the highest standpoint, is from the most exalted vision of only nirguna tattva, of only that non-dual reality. In reality, only that non-dual reality exists, and plurality actually does not exist. It's just an illusion. If we go back to the rope and the snake, can you say that the snake ever existed really in reality? No, it was an imagination. It was false. It was mithya. We say no mithya. It's false. So these are how we have to understand these 4 statements. The first 2 statements are from the standpoint of looking at Bhagavan through plurality. Okay, I'm seeing plurality. How do we explain it? Bhagavan, being the Nirguna Tattva, exists as the substratum for this plurality. Then we enter into that Nirguna reality, that Para Brahman. Then, when we look at from the standpoint of Brahman out to plurality, then we see, oh, there is no plurality. There is only Brahman. So these are the 2 different drishtis. These are the 2 different visions that are put together. Bhagavan slowly, step by step, is leading us to his highest vision. The highest vision is nothing is in me, because nothing ever existed, because only I exist. If you see anything, Arjuna, that's your fault. That's your fault. It's not my fault. I am Advaitam eva Satyam. I am only Advaita. Nothing else actually exists. So I hope these 4 are clear. Are these 4 statements clear now? Those people who asked about these 2 statements in these 2 verses in particular, I hope this is clear. I know somebody asked also these 2 verses in relation to verse 29. When we get to verse 29, I will call back to here and we will resolve that question then. This is what we call as jumping between 2 different sattas. Satta is what we call it is best translated as a level of reality. In philosophy, we say ontological status. I don't know if that means anything to anybody here. If that doesn't, forget about it. It means level of reality. Satta means level of reality. So the level of reality of the desert is deeper than the level of reality of the mirage. That is what Bhagavan wants to say. He says, my reality, my level of reality is absolute. And the level of reality of all these beings is relative. They only exist because of me, and I can exist independently without them. Then why do they appear? Pashyami Yogameshwaram. See my divine glory, that I can exist in this universe, but yet be outside of it. I am immanent in the universe. I pervade the whole universe, yet I am transcendent. I exist beyond it, and I can exist without the manifest universe. So this is verses 4 and 5. Now we get to verse 6, which is just an example to explain verses 4 and 5. It doesn't say anything different. So just as this Vayu, Yatha Akashasthitaha Vayu, like this air that moves in various ways, that emerges and goes in different directions, that has definite form and movement and all different names and types, like this Vayu that exists in plurality, yet it exists on the substratum of space. And space supports that Vayu in the same way, me, the Lord, I support this entire moving system of all beings in all universes, in all time, in all space, etc. So this is just an example to explain verses 4 and 5. Now we get to verses 7 and 8. And here we have a shift. So now Bhagwan in verses 4 through 6 took us slowly to his Nirguna Tattva. He comes back down to the level of Saguna Brahman. So we've covered Nirguna Brahman, and now we are coming to Saguna Brahman. Here in verses 7 and 8, Bhagwan explains himself as the creator of the world, as Ishvara, as the Adhyaksha, the controller of the entire universe. So in verses 7 and 8, he describes that how all beings, because of his own prakriti, they reach him at pralaya time, at the end of time. I dissolve all of them. And then by controlling that very same prakriti, all of those beings again, I create over and over and over again in different cycles of creation. So Bhagwan here is indicated as Srishti Karana, the cause of creation, Sthiti Karana, the cause of maintenance, and Laya Karana, the cause of dissolution. In other words, he is the supreme Ishvara. He controls everything. There's a technical term for this. If you all are interested, I will tell you briefly. Otherwise, you can forget about it. It's okay. This is called as Abhinna Nimittopadana Karana. Abhinna Nimittopadana Karana. Meaning, Bhagwan, what is he creating the world out of? His Prakriti is part of him. So this world also is created in him and by him. Compared to the example of a potter and a pot, the pot is made out of clay. So the clay is the material cause. And then the potter is the efficient cause. These words are upadana karana and nimitta karana, the material and the sentient creator. But in the case of Bhagwan, you cannot say that Bhagwan has a basket of universe material and then he makes the world out of that. No, he makes the universe out of himself. And he, making the universe out of himself, he rules over that universe also at the same time. That's why it said abhinna, non-different, nimitta, and upadana. He is the sentient creating force and he is also the material. What does this mean practically? Everything I see around me in the universe, that is Bhagwan. Bhagwan, 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 everywhere, because that is the material. There is no other material that exists other than Bhagwan. And then you're wondering who's controlling all of this? That is also Bhagwan, as Ishvara. Now, there was one question on this. I will read this question out loud because it's a little lengthy and I'll address this question about verses 7 and 8. With references to verse 7 and 8, this person asks, I am able to understand, appreciate, and relate to Nirguna and Saguna aspects of Brahman. But these two verses give the idea of a creator and annihilator who, quote, acts in the timeline of kalpas to create and dissolve beings. This appears to be different from Saguna form, bhakti aspect, and Nirguna form, jnana aspect. Is it intended to suggest the awesomeness of the Lord and we should consider an aspect of Saguna form? How do we assimilate or internalize the ideas presented in these two verses? Okay, there are some things that I want to say here. First, the sentence here, these two verses give the idea of a creator and annihilator who, quote, acts in the timeline of kalpas to create and dissolve, quote, beings. This is not entirely accurate because time is also material. Time is a created material. Space is a created material. It comes from Bhagwan. Though these things are subtle, they also emerge from Bhagwan. And in the Bhagavatam, very nicely, it says, space and time are created from one thread. How advanced? Space-time. They are created from one thread, but they emerge from Bhagwan itself. So space and time, it's not that Bhagwan is acting in space and time. Space and time are also creations in and through Bhagwan from Bhagwan. They are also that Ishvara Maya. They are pervaded by that Ishvara. So the concept of time that does that dissolving and creating also is another, you can say, tool of Bhagwan. It's nothing separate from him. So that's point number one. Then, second point, this appears to be different from Saguna form, Bhakti aspect, and Nirguna form, Jnana aspect. Should we consider this an aspect of Saguna form? Yes. We have now moved to the Saguna form. This is not separate from Saguna. This question, I think, comes up pretty often. It's a common question about what does this Saguna, is the creator of the universe also considered Saguna? So there's two types of Saguna that we have to understand. There's Saguna Nirakara, and then there's Saguna Sakara. Saguna Sakara is our blue boy of Vrindavan. We know him. Saguna with qualities, Sakara with an Akara, with a particular form. This is who we know in the nice form, who we love. But Saguna Nirakara is that Mayapati Ishvara before he creates anything. And he has the qualities of Sarvagnya, Sarvashakti, Sarvakarunamaya. He is that Abhinna Nimittopadana Karana. He is that Ishvara who is the controller of the universe. So, yes, he has the qualities of being all powerful, of creating everything, of having Maya, which is his own power, come out from his own self. But it's still Saguna. Of course, Saguna, Bhakti, Nirguna, Jnana, yeah, that's true. And I had covered this in chapter 10 also when I had done this, but I'll say it again. Saguna and Nirguna, you can have Bhakti and Jnana for them both. Saguna, you can have devotion, of course, to the Saguna, but while you have devotion to the Saguna, you keep that Nirguna in the background and have that devotion. And that devotion will take us to that Jnana. And that Jnana also is a manifestation of that Saguna Lord. That's not anything different. And when we do Shravana, Manana, and Nididhyasana for that Nirguna Tattva, that is nothing but devotion for that Nirguna Parabrahma. That also is devotion. I had covered this before, so I'm going a little fast. That's not my focus here, but if you have questions on this, you can ask me at the end. So I hope this is resolved. I hope this question is now resolved. Great. So this is verses 7 and 8, Bhagwan as Ishvara. Now we are getting into, so now we have this Ishvara. Now that we have been introduced to Ishvara, the rest of the chapter is about how do we worship that Ishvara? What are the modes of worship, of bhajana? Then what are the results of different types of devotion to Bhagwan? All of that now is covered until the end of the chapter. Because now we've been introduced to Ishvara. This is the theme of these 6 chapters. We will continue. This is the sadhana of that Bhagavad Bhakti that will take us to the nature of Bhagwan as pointed out in verses 4 and 5. So now, from verses 9 and 10, we get some clarification. Because in verse 4 and 5, we saw Bhagwan as this absolute, totally separate, transcendental Parabrahman. Then we got this description of Bhagwan as the creator of everything. Now, how do we reconcile these two? These are covered in verses 9 and 10. So, Bhagwan says to Arjuna, just because I create, destroy, and maintain, Nachamam tani karmani nibandhanti. I am not bound by all of these actions, Arjuna. I am totally different. I am udasinavat. This is a very important word. Udasinavat. I am as though I am like an indifferent person. I do everything, but I am removed from everything. We should not think that Bhagwan is udasina, totally different, indifferent. No, he's udasina vat. He's like somebody who is indifferent. Actually, he's doing everything, but he's acting as he is separate from everybody. Why is he able to do that? Because Bhagwan is reveling always in his true nature. So no superimposed action can truly touch Ishvara. And then, of course, at the Nirguna level, Bhagwan is truly Udasinavat. He is transcendent above everything. That's why it said Udasinavat. So then, that's verse number 9. And then in verse number 10, Bhagwan gives some more, the question may arise, okay, Bhagwan, if you're Udasina, then how are you creating? And then comes a clarification on Maya. Bhagwan says, using my Prakriti, using my Maya, all of these worlds that are constituted of moving and unmoving creatures, all of these things, by me who is the Lord of this Maya, is created. So this Maya is the inherent power of Bhagwan. Inherent power. It is not something separate. Maya is superimposed on that Parabrahman. But when Maya and Brahman come together, we have this entity called Ishvara. So this is Bhagwan's clarification, verses 9 and 10, on how it is even possible that he can be both Brahman and also be Ishvara at the same time. This is his clarification. Now, from verses 11 through 15, we cover different attitudes towards that Bhagwan and the results of these different attitudes. So first in verses 11 and 12, Bhagwan covers those who are ignorant of his nature. Avajananti ma mudhaha, these fools who don't know me, and even though they are taken up in these fools who see me as a human being, manushim tanumashritam, they see me. Now he's referring to himself as Lord Krishna. These fools who see me, Shishupala ityadi, all of these people who see me as just a human being, they don't know my true nature. And then because of this, they fall. Their nature is that they fall. They don't know me in my true nature. And then what happens to them? Verse 12, it is said, they go and then they criticize me. They give me anadara. They don't respect me. Their knowledge is completely covered by ignorance. They have no true knowledge of me. And then they take recourse to their Rakshasa and Asuri nature. What Bhagwan is saying in these two verses is, those who do not come to me, they suffer. Those who do not have knowledge of me, they suffer. An important word to see here is asurim. Okay, we may think that asurim here just means like somebody who's born in Atala Suttala Patala Tala Mahatala, one of those, right? No, the actual vyutpatti or the etymology of the word asura is as follows: asusu praneshu indriyeshu indriyartheshu ye ramante iti asuraha. Those who revel in asus. Asus means pranas. Pranas means senses, actually. Another word for pranas, or another meaning of pranas, is senses. So those people who revel in indriyas or in the sense objects, they are called asuras. It's not a certain life form. What does this mean? One, instead of turning within to Bhagwan's true nature, is completely extrovert, is completely engaged in the objects of the 10 senses. This is what an asura is. So when we read verses 11 and 12, we should be we should look at this looking at ourselves a little bit. That when we in our foolish nature, we look at the world as real and Bhagwan is a little bit unreal. We are engaging in asuri behavior. We should know it's not just some life form. It is a state of mind. And we can flip. One day we'll be very Devi, one day we will be very Asuri. It doesn't matter. But the point is that Asuri is a state of mind in which I am extrovert. This is what these two verses say. And those who are extrovert are deluded about Bhagwan's true nature. So that's verses 11 and 12. Now, verses 13, 14, and 15 give the exact opposite. Now, what about those bhaktas of Bhagwan? What do they do? So those Mahatmanaha, these great souls, they're the ones who bhajanti, they worship me, namasyanti, they bow down to me, they acknowledge me as the true power, and they see me as bhutadim avyayam. They know me as the cause of the whole world, the eternal cause of the whole world. So these great people, these bhaktas, they acknowledge my true nature. Always. And they're always worshiping me with every action, with every thought. They love me. They revere me. And they always are looking out for me. Totally opposite. These people are introvert. Though they may be transacting in the world, they look at the world with the vision of Bhagwan. This is real bhajana. To see this whole world filtered through the lens of Bhagwan. To see everything actually as filled with Bhagwan. And then the next two verses, 14 and 15, describe the two tiers of bhakti. One is 14, prema bhakti. This is Bhagwan, seeing Bhagwan as the object of my devotion. Basically having some distance or difference between the worshipper and the worshipped. And they will do kirtayantaha, namasyantaha. They're always united with me. They're always singing my glories. They're always remembering me. They're always doing katha of me. These are all the typical sadhanas of bhakti we can put here. This is prema bhakti, where I am separate and the Lord is separate. But the next verse, 15, is about para bhakti, that jnana bhakti, that vision of the worshipper and the worshipped being one. And so beautifully, the first worship is jnana yajnena, with that yajna of knowledge. This is how we see bhakti and jnana being one. That when I worship Bhagwan, my Ishta, with that yajna of knowledge, when I truly see him and me as one, and the vision of him pervades everything, including my own self, that is yajantaha, that is worship. That is also bhakti. This is known as para bhakti. In our traditional literature, we'll have para bhakti in bhakti granthas. We should all be very clear. Some people still have this confusion. Para bhakti is the same thing as jnanam in our Advaita tradition. It's not different. This is something we have to be very clear. That para bhakti, that jnana bhakti, that is the same thing as sakshatkar of Brahman, of aham brahmasmi. It's the same thing. It's just spoken with different language. You look this way, this side of the coin, it's bhakti. This side of the coin, it's jnanam. But actually, that experience is one. The experience of para bhakti and Brahma Sakshatkara is one. That is the point I wanted to make about verse 15. So here ends the section on all the different ways people can approach Bhagwan. This is you can ignore Bhagwan and then we are covered and diluted with ignorance, or we understand who Bhagwan is, actively recall that, and we get closer and closer to him. That is up till verse 15. Now we enter a very beautiful section. I'm not going to take it in detail because it's pretty simple, but verses 16 through 19 is Bhagwan's vibhutis. Now that he has explained how he is to be reached, now he says, how can you see me in the world around you? How am I manifest in the world around you? And this is just so beautiful. And these four verses are elaborated in chapter 10 as Vibhuti Yoga. But Bhagwan says, some highlights. I'll just give you some highlights of these. He says, I am pitahamasya jagataha mata dhata pitamaha. I am the mother, I'm the father, and I'm the grandfather of the whole world. I am the creator, I am the material, and I am the absolute cause of the whole world, he says. Then he says, I am the Lord, I am the witness, I am the final refuge, I am your best friend, I am the cause, I am the end, I am the maintenance, I am the treasure of this whole world. He says so many beautiful things. This is how I manifest in the world. These are all the ways we can meditate on Lord as Ishvara, on Lord as Saguna Brahman. These are all things to contemplate for us. So this goes until verse 19. And this is kind of an elaboration on verse 14. So verse 14 says, what those bhaktas do, how they worship me, well, they see me in all these different ways. So then the question comes about, okay, what about those people who they seem to worship you, Bhagwan, but they worship with this desire in their heart. They have a desire for enjoyment. They want to go to Swarga. They want to get punya, this, blah, blah, blah. What happens to them? That is covered in verse number 20 to 21. What is the fate of these Sakami people? They may worship, they may do yajna yaga and everything, but what do they want? They want something. They want to go to Brahmaloka. They want to go to Gandharvaloka or whatever. They want all these things. So what happens? What happens is they do wonderful yajnas. They drink the soma. Soma means that liquid at the end that is offered to the yajna, made out of the soma plant. They take, basically what Bhagwan is saying, they do all the yajnas and yagas perfectly, as per the Vedic injunctions. Shrota, smarta, karma, they do everything perfectly. And then they go to those higher realms. But once they go to those higher realms, kshine punye marte lokam vishanti, their punyas end. And then all of those great, celestial beings who said, ehi, come, I'm taking you. The same ones will say, ja, wapis ja. They'll say, go back all the way down. Your credit card of punya is maxed out. Please go get some more credit on earth. And this person falls back down again. And Bhagwan says very beautifully, Gata Gatam. They come and they go, they come and they go, they come and they go. But you know, the net movement is zero. They go up, they come down, they go up and they come down. Because that kama, that fire of kama, those who are desirous of more and more desirables, that kama is never quenched. So no matter how much we experience and no matter how much we enjoy, we will come back to square one when our punyas run out. And then again, we have to acquire punya to enjoy more. On the other hand, and this comes one of the most beautiful verses, is verse 22, which is what about those people who worship Bhagwan without any kama, without any desire? This total nishkama bhakti is known as ananya bhakti, and this is what is described in verse number 22. So, verse number 22, okay, I'll get to 23 later. First, we'll look at verse number 22. So, verse 22 shows ananyas chintayantumam, those who are ananyaha. They don't see Bhagwan as separate from themselves. Ananyaha, non-separate. In other words, they are those jnani bhaktas. Those jnani bhaktas, those who worship me in that way, for them, Bhagavan says, Yoga Kshemam Vahamyaham. I bear all of their acquisition and all protection. Most beautiful promise. Most beautiful promise in all of the Bhagavad Gita. It's so wonderful. Another way of looking at the word ananyaha is to see ananyaha, nobody else. Even if that person is not yet a jnani bhakta, they're still a prema bhakta, but they don't worship or they don't depend on anything else other than their ishta. Still, this promise applies. So those people who have no other altar of worship, and no other altar of worship includes my own ego, includes my own power, includes my own skills, because actually all of it exists with Bhagwan. All of it is Bhagwan only. That also, the promise still applies. So this is most beautiful, and leave it to Bhagwan Adi Shankaracharya ji to gild the lily, to make it even more beautiful. And I'll share a point that is shared in the Bhashya, which I think is just so wonderful. He says, well, okay, you're jnani, okay, these great bhaktas, who only depend on you, or these jnani bhaktas, okay, you bear yoga kshemam for them also, but you have other bhaktas, like middle class bhaktas, whatever, like beginning bhaktas, but you care for them also, Bhagwan. Is that not true? Don't you do that? It's a good point. Bhagwan Adi Shankaracharya ji raises this point. What about these other bhaktas that you are also clearly caring for? How are you doing that? So it's such a beautiful answer, so wonderful. He says, Satyameva, true. I help them also. Actually, I do yoga kshemam for all beings in the world. It's not that I only provide for my jnani bhaktas. But what is the difference? For everybody else, Bhagwan says, I manifest as their ego, as their antaryami. And that person thinks, I'm hungry, so I am going to eat, so I will provide for myself and I will make money. That I, that is Bhagwan's expression. And so that individual in delusion thinks that I am caring for myself, but actually it's Bhagwan manifesting as that I, manifesting as that individuality. And then that person cares for themselves. But this jnani bhakta, that bhakta has no, or that prema bhakta who has no other care other than for Bhagwan, they have no individuality. They don't care about themselves also. There's no themselves. There's no me left. So Bhagwan says, in that case, I myself, me, I go down and I, in my body or in my own, with my own will, I ensure that this person is taken care of. And we see this in the lives of all saints, that wonderful, magical things happen around them because not that the bhakta wants that, but because Bhagwan is protecting that bhakta. Because if he doesn't, who will do it? That bhakta's not going to protect themselves. Oh, it's so beautiful. Isn't it just so beautiful? I had to share this one point. Otherwise, I'm not really going on the bhashya, but it's just so heart melting. that the jnani bhakta has no ego. So who is left to self-preserve? It's Bhagwan, because actually Bhagwan is the self of that jnani bhakta. So we move on now from this verse, even though it's very hard to move on. We'll move on to verse number 23. Now, 23, from 23 onwards comes a separate topic. Not a separate topic, but kind of a new thought. So some people worship Bhagwan as Ishvara, Bhagwan as the cause of the whole creation. But then there's some people who worship, for example, Agni Devata, Vayu Devata, or they worship small devatas for the sake of certain things, or they worship, other deities, smaller deities, maybe they're Kula Devata. No, what is all that about? Bhagwan, is that not also worship of you? He says, yes. Those who worship me in all other forms, they also actually, and they're who are doing this with great faith, they actually worship me alone at the end of the day. Why? Because all of those other devatas, I only am the source of all their power. So that worship actually comes to me. And he says later, that's what he says in verse number 24. Aham hi sarva yajnanam bhokta cha prabhurevacha. I am of all yajnas, of all worship, ultimately. Yajno vai Vishnu. Ultimately, I am the one who accepts all offerings and is the controller of the results of all offerings, whether they come directly to me or they come to a part of me, to somebody under my control, like all of these devatas that I just listed. But now, after that, we come to in the second half of this verse, there comes almost like a caveat. Bhagavan says, okay, you can worship me through other ways. But the problem is that at the end of the day, you don't know me in my true nature. You are worshiping only a part of me, and that too for some specific result. If that is the case, because you do not know me, na abhijananti, tatvena taschavanti te, they fall again. So let's say somebody worships Surya Devata, they attain great fame, they gain that glory. Okay, then what? Eventually, that result of that specific yajna or that specific worship they done is gone. It's over. And then again, we have to start because we did not reach Bhagwan in his actual nature. Again, remember, this is why we have to do bhakti with that jnana in the background. Our Acharya used to say, don't treat Ishvara like a devata. He used to say, we treat Ishvara like a devata. So, Bhagwan, give me this, give me that, please. I will break this coconut. I will do this much japa. Please, please give me that, give me this. We have reduced Bhagwan to the devata level then. We're not acknowledging his Ishvaratva. If we acknowledge his Ishvaratva, we will not even ask. We won't even, or we'll say, Bhagwan, this is what I want, but at the end of the day, what you give me, that's enough. But when we reduce Bhagwan to the level of this Devata, Chivanti, we will fall again because Bhagwan may give us what we want, but we have not gotten closer to him. We've just gotten something out of him. So we have to be careful with which attitude we are approaching Bhagwan. And so this exact result Bhagwan gives in verse 25. He says, see, all the different ways that you can worship me, you get what you ask for. Those who associate me with a deva, they become one with that devata. Or those who, who worship the pitras, they go to pitraloka. Those who worship, all of these beings, Bhutani includes all these yaksha and bhuta, pishacha, who love that sort of thing. They become, best friends with them. They go there. But then, yanti madhyajinopi mam. Madhyaji mam yanti. Those who worship me, they reach me. Ultimately, they reach me because they have come to understand my true nature. Remember, to reach Bhagwan is to know Bhagwan. Here, we are talking about knowledge. And these are all of the different results. Now Bhagwan is going to give kind of like a pros and cons. See, what happens is when we want to do worship of any devata, then there's a lot we have to think about. We have to think about what the worship is. If we're talking about the traditional yajna yaga of the Vedas, then we have to have the right, yajna, we have the right bricks, we have to have the right four priests, we have to have the right mantras, we have to have the right patras, we have to have the right time, the right place, we have to do everything right, and then maybe, perhaps, we get the right result. Considering all this, then we go to verse 26. Patram pushpam phalam toyam. So easy, so simple. Bhagavan says, why do you want to go anywhere else? First of all, if you go anywhere else, you get a limited result. You only get to go to Devaloka, Pitraloka, you're hanging out with Bhuta Pishach. Why not come be with me? And if you're worried that it's very difficult, no, I only want whatever you have that's available to you. Patram pushpam phalam toyam doesn't mean literally patram pushpam phalam toyam, literally a leaf of flower or whatever. It means whatever is available to us, easily available to us. That if we offer to Bhagwan, then that is enough. Bhagwan accepts it. Because at the end, he ashnami, he eats, he devours that which is bhakti upahritam, that which is offered with bhakti, with that bhava. In Bhakti Shastra, it is said Bhagavan is bhavagrahi. Bhagavan eats the bhava. He actually wants that. So whatever we have available to us, we should give him. That's this verse is to show the ease of Bhagavan's worship. And the second verse, the next verse, 27th verse, elaborates even more. Bhagavan says, not only this, whatever, yat karoshi, whatever you do, yat ashnasi, whatever you eat, whatever you worship, whatever you give, whatever austerities you do, all of those, if you do for my sake, 24/7, whatever you are doing, if you offer to me, that is worship for me. You don't have to do anything separate. No yajna, no ishti, no smarta shrauta karma, nothing. No strings attached. The second beautiful thing about this is, and you get this a little bit in second chapter with Neha Bikramana Shosti. There's no fault if we're not able to do this imperfectly. Sometimes we do an action and we think of Bhagwan and we forget him halfway through. He says, that's okay, you did it half right. I'll accept that. That's good. Next time you remember me 3/4 of the time. You do a little bit better. But it's not like that with worshipping other devatas. You make one mistake, you're finished. One swara here, there, it's not accepted. But with Bhagwan, all you have to do is kayena vacha, etc., and he's like, okay, I forgive. So he's so compassionate. Here, Bhagwan is advertising how easy Bhagavat Bhajana is. There's a beautiful verse that our Acharya gave me. I couldn't find the source for this, but I'll try and find it. It goes like this. Aranye santi patrani. Nadyam swadudakani cha. Nadyam swadudakani cha. Santi padau cha hastau cha. Katham naradhyate harihi. So beautiful. Aranye santi patrani. In the forest there are leaves. Nadyam swadudakani cha. Tasty or sweet waters are there in the rivers. Santi padau cha haste cha. I have legs and I have hands. Katham na aradhyate hari. Why is the Lord not being worshipped by me? How difficult is it? Our Acharya even used to say, even if you're upset and you're crying, you say, Bhagwan, I'm crying, these tears are for you. That also is worship. Bhagwan, my smile is for you. That also is worship. It's so simple. Sometimes we overcomplicate things. But it really is that easy. And this actually, in a roundabout way, this is Bhagwan's glory. That he accepts, he understands the limitations of that jiva. And he says, I only want you, that jiva, not what you can create for me because actually all of that is mine. Not what you can do for me because actually all that is mine. I just want you, your bhava, that sweetness, that love I want from you. And that is why these verses are so beautiful. Now, when we get to verse 28, this is the result we see from verse 27. There's a little bit of flair of karma yoga in this verse, but the emphasis, of course, is on Ishvara Tattva. Basically, Bhagavan says, when you act like this, when you renounce your minus over everything that you do and instead do it for me, the Lord, then vimuktaha, you are freed. This is showing the result of verses 26 and 27. Okay, now we are getting to verse number 29. This also, people had a lot of questions, so I'll go a little bit in detail here. Samoham sarvabhuteshu. I am equal to all beings. This this is this is similar to what Bhagwan said in verses 4 and 5. If we go back and we remember that nirguna tattva is equal to all beings. Okay? And then the other way to understand this, samoham sarva bhuteshu name dveshu asti na priyaha. So one way to understand it is from the nirguna aspect. See, the nirguna tattva supports the whole world. Samaha, equal to everybody. But if we see this as Ishvara speaking, aham as Ishvara, then Bhagwan says, I am equal to everybody. Equal how? Well, again, I'm going to refer to the Bhashya. It says very nicely. Bhagwan says, I am like fire. If you come close to me, then you are warmed. If you stay far from me, you will be cold. This is literally the example given in the Bhashya. So I am equal to all. I am equally blessing everybody. But it depends on the individual person. Do they acknowledge me? Do they see me? Do they look for my grace? If they look for it, they will be blessed by it. It's a two-way street. So now it is up to you. Bhagwan says it is up to you. Samoham sarvabhuteshu. Seen from the standpoint of that Parabrahman, and also seen from the standpoint of Ishvara. In Gurudev's commentary, now one person had asked about Gurudev's commentary on this verse. In Gurudev's commentary, he chooses the first interpretation for this verse. He interprets this as the description of Nirguna Brahman. But in the Bhashya, the perspective is of Ishvara. You can see both in this verse. Both are correct. Nothing is wrong, but they're just different ways of seeing. So let's look at the second verse. People had a lot of confusion about this also. Ye bhajanti tumam bhaktya mai te teshu chapyaham. Those who worship me with devotion, I am in them and they are in me. So again, let us see from the nirguna standpoint. From the nirguna standpoint, ye bhajanti, those who worship me, how? With that jnana yajna. Those who know me with that knowledge, mai te teshu chapya, I am in them as their own self, and they are in me as my own self. As in, they experience me as their own self, and I experience them as myself. As in, there is oneness between the two that is actually experienced. What is the difference between this and verses 4 and 5? Verses 4 and 5 was talking about the two sattas. The satta of the world, the existence of the world, which is relative, and the existence of Bhagwan, which is absolute. So Bhagwan's existence is absolute, so he's part of the world. But because the existence of the world is relative, the world does not exist in Bhagwan. This is speaking from the perspective of experience, of Brahma Sakshatkar. When that happens, then the self is accessible to me. It is known to me as myself. This is what Gurudev says in the commentary of this verse. He says, the self is available to everybody, as in it is existing everywhere. But just as light is only reflected in a clean mirror, those who have done that Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana, only they will experience the Lord in their heart as their self. This is interpretation number 1. Interpretation number 2 is those who worship me, Ishvara. Those who worship me, Ishvara. I exist in them and they exist in me. How? Because I exist in them in their contemplation of me. They're always contemplating me, who I am, my nature. And then when they do that, Bhagwan says very sweetly, I always think of my bhaktas. Yoga Kshema Mahamyam. I contemplate on my bhaktas. There's a very famous story of Lord Krishna who is meditating, and then he's asked, who are you meditating on? And he says, I am meditating on that Bhishma Pitama who is meditating on me on the bed of arrows. This is the idea here. That Ishvara, when contemplated on by these bhaktas, even though Ishvara is available for everybody, when the bhakta meditates on that Ishvara, or contemplates on that Ishvara, then Ishvara is available for that bhakta in his or her own thoughts, readily available. And when that happens, then Bhagwan's attention also goes out to that bhakta. This is verse 29. I hope this is now clear for everybody who asked about verse number 29. Great. Okay, we are almost done. We're in the home stretch, guys. Almost done. Now, from verse 30 to 33, we have, sorry, from verse 30 to, yes, verse 30 to 33, we have an expansion of this word samaha. From verse 29, samoham, that samaha is expanded. Bhagwan says, I am available for all, and he says, see who all I am available for. He says, even suduracharaha, someone mahapapi, some, somebody who has done atipapishta, someone who has done just the most terrible things. If they worship me, then he should be considered a sadhu. We have many examples of this in our own history. Ratnakar became Valmiki Rishi, etc., etc. There's so many examples. I'm not going to go through them. But the point is, when the person's mind turns towards Bhagavan, the turning to Bhagavan itself is purifying, and that person becomes sadhu. And not only does he become sadhu, kshipram bhavati, he becomes sadhu very quickly. That's how purifying Bhagavan is. And then again, another promise Bhagavan gives is Name Bhakta Pranashyati. One who turns his mind towards me, one who turns her mind towards me, I will never ever let them go. This is Bhagavan's promise. Then 32, somewhat of a controversial verse. Let's talk about it. Striyo, Vaishyaha, Shudraha, everybody can worship me. What we have to understand, one is everybody who comes here, it's called papayonayaha. Okay, we should not consider this to be somebody's physical birth, first of all. Let's take, for example, striyaha, women. Is Bhagavan saying, wow, even women, wow, even you can do it? No, that's not the tone. Striyaha, it's said in Vivek Chudamani commentary, Gurudev says very beautifully, is not a physical aspect. It is a mental aspect. Our Acharya used to say that Gurudev, to demonstrate this point, he would say, and this is a little bit of a political statement, Gurudev used to say, in Indira Gandhi's cabinet, there's only one man, and that's Indira Gandhi. He used to say that, apparently. This is to say what is pumstvam? What is manliness? And who is a striya? Who is a stri? It's the mental quality of dependence. Even in Vivek Chudamani commentary, Gurudev really blasts people. He says there are many women hiding behind mustaches and beards in today's day and age. He says this. It's a mental quality of dependence that is called as striya. It's not to do with physically man or woman. Similarly, vaishyaha, shudra has nothing to do with one's physical birth or one's career. It has to do with guna. It has to do with karma. What sort of person? If a person is full of tamas, if a person really can only be instructed on what to do, then that person is qualified as or categorized as shudraha. But the point is that a person whose mind, whether man or woman, is always dependent on others for happiness, who's very emotional, whether man or woman, no matter their career, whether they're filled with rajas and tamas, these people have difficulty directly entering the path of jnana. Directly entering the path of jnana is difficult because shravana, manana, nididhyasana becomes difficult. It is difficult. It's not possible. A certain amount of mental purity is required. But for bhakti, everybody is available to contemplate on the Lord, to love the Lord as the cause of everything, to know the Lord that way in swadhaham, aushadham, as gatihi, bharta, prabhu, sakshi, nivasa, to revel in the Lord's manifest nature is available for everybody. It's very easy for everybody to do, which is a great introductory sadhana for all of us. That is the point of this verse. This is why Bhagavan is saying, Samoham sarvabhuteshu. I am available for worship to everybody equally. This is the point that he's trying to make. So again, we should not get bogged down into the controversies regarding this verse. We have to be very clear. This has nothing to do with one's physical birth or physical appearance. At the end of the day, Brahma Vidya is for the mind. It has nothing to do with our body. What sort of mind do we have? All of the sadhana chatushtaya are qualities of the mind. Sadhana chatushtaya is difficult for these types of people to get. That's the only point Bhagavan is making. But Bhagavad Bhakti is available for everybody. Then he says, if if people who have difficulty in jnana also can engage in bhakti, what about people who are good at jnana, who are very easily entering the fold of jnana? Well, they're mahabhaktas. Brahmanaha, punyaha, bhakta, rajarshaya, the rajarishis, the brahmanaha. These all, they also come to me in the form of as bhaktas. They are not only jnanis, they are also bhaktas. And he says, very astutely, Bhagwan says, to sum up this section, he says, see, I am available for everybody. So, ergo, therefore, he says, anityam asukham imam lokam prapya mam bhajasva. Having gained this ephemeral, joyless, essenceless, terrible world, what are you waiting for? Worship me, mam bhajasva. Now I am the only thing left for you to attain. Mam bhajasva. And finally, in the last verse, Bhagwan summarizes all the different ways as a repetition of all the different ways that we can worship him and concludes this verse to emphasize all the different ways we can worship him, the ease of worshiping him, and by the repetition itself, he emphasizes the need to worship him. You must do this. And he says, man manaha, those whose minds are completely lost in me, as in those who are united with me in knowledge. Mad bhaktaha, those who are prema bhaktas, those who love me as their Lord. Madhyaji, those who worship me in various ways. All of those people, even if you can't do any of those things, mam namaskuru. They accept me as the final Lord and they bow down to me, they salute me. If you do all of these things, or even one of these things, mam eva eshyasi, you will reach me alone. And yuktva eva atmanam, having united with me, mat parayanaha, you will become those who are having Bhagwan as the supreme goal, you will become united with me, Atmanam, in my true self. You will reach my true nature as your own self. So again, Bhagwan takes it back to that ultimate reality. What is the point of all of these different ways of worshipping Bhagwan? To ultimately reach him in his true reality. And thus ends chapter 9. Thank you all for your very dedicated attention. This was a doozy. It is a heavy chapter. It is a very heavy chapter, actually. It's quite beautiful, but it requires a little bit of focus and attention. So I covered all of the questions. Anybody who asked questions regarding 4, 5, and 29, I have covered. I covered one question on verses 7 and 8. Now, there is one question that I want to read out loud that I got here. Okay. Oh, sorry. It's here. Okay, great. So this is about this concept of doing everything and offering to Bhagwan. So this person asks, even while doing all of our dharma by offering it to the supreme power, expecting nothing in return, at times some compliments make me feel happy. How to get rid of that ego too? Good question. So yes, it is natural that when we start doing a little bit of sadhana, we feel, wow, I'm doing sadhana. Great. And then some people, the thing is, when we do sadhana, we become dexterous. We become efficient. We become better at what we do. And naturally, people will compliment us. And then we feel the weight of that compliment and we say, ah, wow, nice. It feels good. It's very natural, nothing to feel bad about. But I understand what you're asking. The first thing that we should consider is, who gave me this ability about which people are complimenting me? Let's say somebody compliments me, I feel good. Ah, I notice it. Now I have to think. Let's say I cooked something very nicely. And then they said, "Oh wow, you're such a good cook, you know. Haath mein kuch jadoo hai. You're just something special you are." And you feel really good. Now you have to think, okay, where did I get this ability to cook? Bhagwan through various people, my mother, my grandmother, people in my life, they taught me. Okay, those people really, so Bhagwan only taught me how to cook. What about all these materials, that I used to cook? That Bhagwan only gave me. What about all this time and effort and all this? What about my energy? Okay, Bhagwan only gave that. If we consider what we did in this equation, Nothing. We did nothing. That's the answer. We did absolutely nothing. Then suddenly we feel, oh, what am I feeling good about? What is this compliment about? Okay, Bhagwan. Then you take that compliment and you give it to Bhagwan. Mentally offer it. Bhagwan, this is going to you. Thank you for cooking so well through me. Not that I didn't cook. It is something else. Someone else did this thing through me. And that's what they're complimenting me about. In this vein, because I sense something deeper in this question that I want to address, which I think is quite insightful, is how do we get rid of even the ego of a bhakta? Right? Like how this is something maybe not directly in the question, but I was thinking about it. And I wanted to tell a story that my acharya told me in the course that really touched me when I heard it. It's a bhakti parampara story, but it's goes with this really well. So once Bhagwan Shri Krishna was with his charioteer, Daruka, and they were sitting in Bhagwan's chariot. And Bhagwan was taking rest. He was lying down, and his head was on Daruka's lap. And Daruka was fanning Bhagwan. And Bhagwan was resting, sleeping, whatever. And Daruka, fanning Bhagwan, looking at Bhagwan, this love wells up inside of him. You know, he sees his best friend, a charioteer, occupies a very special place. He is a confidant, he's a servant, he's a friend, all in one. They spend so much personal time with the person they are serving. And he feels this rush of blessedness that Bhagwan is with me. He's with me and he knows who Bhagwan is. He's not ignorant. Bhagwan is with me. And he's looking at Bhagwan's beautiful form, his beautiful closed eyes, his beautiful clothes, his beautiful hair. And he suddenly, his eyes well up with tears. And just as he's about to start crying, he thinks, Bhagwan will be disturbed if I cry. If my tears fall, it'll wake him up. And he sucks it in. And he kills that emotion, even of blessedness. And he stills his mind. And he continues to fan Bhagwan. It's such a beautiful story because it shows that even at that highest level, a bhakta like Daruka, that feeling of bhakti, that good feeling of bhakti, he won't even claim. That I want this, I feel good as a bhakta, even that he won't touch. Even that is for Bhagavan. In Bhakti Shastra, it said, who is bhakti for? Is it for the bhakta or is it for Bhagavan? Actually, bhakti is for Bhagavan. This is a bit of a rahasya. It takes a lot of time to understand, but this was the context in which the story was told. So whenever we start worshiping Bhagavan in the beginning, we will feel that blessedness, we will feel happy, we will feel good, all good things will start happening. But there is something so much higher. And that is, you know what? Even I don't exist to receive that blessedness. And that is something very advanced. And I wanted to just bring it to our notice. And I wanted us all to think about that a little bit. That is point number 2. Now, all of this is easy to say regarding this question, and this is the last thing I'll say about this question about removing our ego when we worship Bhagwan. And that is, at the end of the day, the easiest way to deal with our ego is to laugh at it. To say when we contemplate, we say, "Oh my God, what are we so proud of? What are we enjoying so much in this compliment?" It's a big entertainment, actually. It's a marvelous entertainment. And after we laugh about it, we should just focus our mind on Bhagavan. If we're thinking, oh, how do I get rid of my ego and how do I become more humble and how do I do this? Again, it becomes about me. Okay, done. It's very entertaining. Done. Okay, now enough. It's nothing so serious happening here. It's just me and my mind. Again, bring the form of the Lord in my mind and focus on him because he's the only thing worth thinking about. That is the last thing I'll say about this question. I hope it cleared it up. Okay. Now the last question I have is here. The last question I have is how in verse 22, Ananyas Chintayanto Mam, that verse, Lord Krishna promises to personally look after the welfare of his devotees. How can I develop this deep, exclusive devotion to him so I can experience that divine care? Exclusive devotion means Ananya Bhakti, means loving and focusing on the Supreme Lord completely without being distracted by anyone else. Correct. Okay, so how do I develop Ananya Bhakti? Well, first we have to start with Anya Bhakti. First, we have to start with thinking about him a little bit. Then, slowly, as we do all of these things listed in this chapter, we develop Ananya Bhakti. So, for example, Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam. A little bit, let's start with whatever little bit we have. Offer Bhagwan in a certain time of the day, certain amount of my effort. We can put some niyama. And we don't compromise with that. Okay, Bhagwan, if I can't be Ananya for 24 hours, I can be Ananya for 15 minutes. And then for that 15 minutes, I will be yours and yours only. That's it. Then that 15 minutes becomes 20 minutes, becomes half an hour. Then slowly we become attuned to Bhagavan in other aspects of our life. Then we can start thinking of him in all the different ways listed in this chapter. Gatir Bharta, Prabhu Sakshi, ityadi. We see him. Then slowly, as we start that effort of 15 minutes of Ananya, Bhagavan himself will expand that time. He himself will appear to us throughout the day. But the point is, whatever is being said in this chapter, that is what we have to do. This is our sadhana. There's no extra other hidden sadhana anywhere else. It is very clearly laid out in this chapter 9. Patram pushpam phalam toyam yat karoshi yad ashnasi. Whatever we do, offer to him. If you're not able to do that all day, yes, it's understandable. It's hard to focus on him all day. I'm not there, definitely. But I have time where I say, Bhagwan, I'm only focused on you. Nothing else. I'm just giving my mind to you. When we do that, slowly, that time will increase. Bhagwan only increases that time. Bhagwan only comes to us. So ultimately, in those 15 minutes when we are with him, we just have to pray, Bhagwan, now you take care. I'm doing my part. Now you do the rest. Because ultimately, Ananya Bhakti, really, is it in our hands? No, it's really not. Bhagwan is the one who pulls Bhakti out of us. If we have even a little bit of that 15 minutes of Ananya Bhakti, that's also Bhagwan's grace. It's nothing that we did, anything great. So Ananya Bhakti starts small. Bhagwan only will take care to grow it. And contemplate on these verses. That is our source for our sadhana. And we all have it. We all have that Ananya Bhakti in little bits. That's why we're here. Nobody doesn't have it here. I can't say that about anybody. But when we do it a little bit, we'll see that it starts to grow. I hope this clears up the answer. So these are all the questions that I got now. I believe we have some more time. If anybody wants to ask questions now, then I guess Vibhuji, you can.
You're muted, Pramachani ji.
Yeah, well, I hit
Sorry.
that button so people could unmute themselves. That's why
Okay.
you went on mute for a moment.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if anybody has any questions now, they can ask.
So if you don't mind, please raise your hand. Otherwise, Hari Om, please raise your hand and somebody will call on you. Otherwise, it could be a little chaotic. Yes, MC Raoji.
Yeah, a few things I just understood from this session. Normally, when we say Brahma Vidya, we say that Atman Brahma are two sides of the same coin. Whereas
No, they
Raja
are one.
Vidya.
Okay, yes, continue, yes.
Okay, whereas Raja Vidya is found only in Bhagavad Gita, nowhere else, this particular term. And what I understand from Raja Vidya is Krishna in Saguna form and Brahman Nirguna form are two sides of the same coin, are one and the same. That's what I understood. And second point is that for Brahma Vidya, you require the sadhana chatushtayam. Whereas here in this case, only faith is required. That's all. That's what Bhagavan said right in the second and third sloka. Asraddha. That means those who have got only faith, that the faith is most important. Because when he says that Sriyo Vaishya Sada Sudra, they cannot be expected to have the sadhana chatushtaya. Whereas everybody can have faith here. And finally, what is the Raj Guhyam, royal secret? The royal secret is in the last verse. Man manabha mad bhakta mad yaji mam namaskaru. All this what I have understood. I may be right, I may not be, I may be wrong. Okay, but
So,
this
so
is my
I'll respond. So thank you for your reflection. So I'll respond first on the Rajavidya Rajaguhyam thing. So Rajavidya Rajaguhyam is talking about Brahma Vidya. That is just another name given to Brahma Vidya. It's not anything different that we are seeing here. Yes, this is a unique term that we see in Bhagavad Gita. Bhagwan is just emphasizing to Arjuna the uniqueness or the rahasya, the secret nature of this knowledge, that it's not so accessible. Even when we learn it, it's not accessible. That is the point of these words. But Raja Vidya especially is referring only to Brahma Vidya. It is referring to Brahma Vidya. Yes, it is true that Bhagwan Krishna is giving this in this form right now, but Raja Vidya is referring to that Vijnanam. Jnanam, Vijnanam, that Brahma Vidya. That is what Bhagwan is referring to. So that's about the Raja Vidya and Raja Guhyam. About your second point about sadhana chatushtaya, yes, in general, yes, you are correct. Faith is important for devotion, but most importantly, devotion is important for devotion. As in that love for Bhagwan. See, one can have faith in Bhagwan, but that love, that rasa, that melting of the heart, that is the nature of devotion, really speaking. Because faith in Bhagwan, how? People have faith that Bhagwan exists. They have some faith. But then what does that mean for me? Do I have a personal connection with Bhagwan? Am I relating to Bhagwan? Do I regularly contemplate on Bhagwan? That all comes from love. Love. That comes from that heart melting connection with Bhagwan. Shraddha is actually, indicates knowledge. Shraddha is not just faith, Shraddha is an intellectual exercise, actually. It is understanding the Lord properly. And when we understand the Lord properly, the devotion naturally comes. The crux of devotion, I would say, is in ananyaha. Nobody else is for me. That's how I really know that I love Bhagwan, that I'm not depending or leaning on anybody else. I hope this makes sense to you. Yeah, thank you for sharing. Is that okay?
Yeah, I've got two more points. What is jnanam and vijnanam? Like what you have said, whatever you read in the book is all jnanam. That is scriptural knowledge.
Yes.
And vijnanam is intuition realization.
Yes, correct.
For example,
correct.
let me clarify. Suppose now you tell a child, no bedwetting, no bedwetting, no bedwetting. He understands it. But when he grows up, he intuitively realizes that if he is going to, any moment you try to get up, he bedwetting, immediately he gets up. Okay, that means what? It is not sensory. It's something is in the back of in his consciousness. So that is called the vijnanam. That means automatically the bhakti should become part of, even if somebody wakes you up at midnight, say Sri Krishna. Okay. Normally, otherwise, what happens normally when somebody is say in pain? Normally, first thing what they do, Oma, everybody calls out mummy, mother, whether it's animal or human, anything like that. Okay, that is the intuitively he is calling out. He is not calling out of any reason, anything like that. The first calling. So similarly, the intuitive calling out Krishna is the vijnanam. That's what I understand the difference between knowledge and jnanam and vijnanam. Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you, Rauji.
that's
Yeah, sorry.
that's
Thank you,
yeah.
Rauji. I wanted us to listen to Aparnaji, and then we can get more questions. Please.
1 second, Vibhuji, I have something to say on this. So so that's correct. But jnanam, vijnanam is in technical terms, it is referring to Brahma Vidya. Because in chapter 7, it is introduced that is talking about the intellectual knowledge. Jnanam is the intellectual knowledge of I am Brahman, and Vijnanam is the experiential, what you said, the experiential realization of me as that self, as Brahman. So that's just one thing to note. So I'm sure you have more points. I'm sorry to cut you off, but I
No,
think
no,
there's other
others
people
are
who have
minor.
questions.
Okay.
But if there's time at the end, we will continue to discuss. So I
Yes,
think
thank you. I didn't mean to interrupt you, Rauji. I know there are lots of questions out there, so I want to give everybody a little chance. Appreciate it. Thank you. Okay. I know Medhaji had mentioned. Yes, Medhaji, go ahead.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
This is my personal question, not from chapter 9, but related somewhat to this question. The question is that I wake up every morning 4 o'clock, and from 4 o'clock to 8:30, when I resume the another duties of my daily work, I'm very focused, very, very focused. But as soon as it is afternoon, I go to the yoga and see the people. My mind slips from my focus on God to the human being, to the illusory world. How do I control that? I want to have a same feeling what I have in the morning at 4 o'clock every day. I have same feeling even in the afternoon. So how do I control that?
This is a very interesting question. So one thing that we have to realize is that uh, mm, controlling these things is difficult. Like if you're saying I want to control that, rather the words that I think that would be more helpful are how can I bring awareness of Bhagavan back? Because the minute we use words like control, right, the we start fighting the mind, and then it becomes difficult. The other thing I will say is, the quality of sadhana, or the quality of our mind in different times of day will naturally change. How I am meditative in the beginning of the day is very different from when I am doing this, for example. It's my mind has to be in a different headspace, right? Because I have to talk, I have to be alert, I have to watch, make sure everybody's looking like they understand, I'm not confusing anybody. Like there's so many things going on. My mind is working in a very different way. Similarly, like when you're going and meeting people, doing yoga and all these things, your mind will work differently. So it may not be that your mind will be exactly the same way that it is in the morning. The mind also goes through its ups and downs, just as the body. It's refreshed when it wakes up and it's just dragging itself to bed by the end. It's natural. The mind also is a subtle body. It'll have its ups and downs. So we should not expect Brahma Muhurta levels of awareness of Bhagavan at 4 p.m. It's not going to happen.
But this is everyday problem. That's why I ask you the question.
So I'm coming. Yes, I understand. So I'm coming to the solution. So what if we feel like we are forgetting Bhagwan? If that is what our worry is, then on a practical level, I would say that before whatever you do that you feel is distracting you, you install like 3 to 4 minutes of prayer right before that activity. Like have an alarm or something. And say, Bhagwan, I would like to remember you in between throughout this activity when I may get caught up in other things. Grounding yourself before the activity may help you remember Bhagwan throughout the activity. That's like a practical solution. The second thing is that it when we feel like we lose awareness of Bhagwan, we can have some sort of regular sadhana like that goes on in the background that can help us bring that back. For example, if you are doing yoga, like I used to do this in college, I used to feel that I used to feel the same thing that Bhagwan, I'm forgetting you when I go to campus. I'm in front of you in the morning, and then when I go to campus in my classes, I totally forget. So what I used to do is when I'm walking by myself, somebody had given me the tip of, as I walk, to to associate with my footsteps some sort of mantra. Usually they do this on some yatra, like they'll say Om Namah Shivaya, like that. So I have taken Bhagwan's Nama and I have associated it with a physical activity. And Bhagwan's Nama helps me continue that smarana of Bhagwan. So maybe if you're doing yoga, then as you do your yoga poses, you inhale, exhale, include Bhagwan's Nama throughout the asanas or whatever. Or when you're walking back and forth, then you can do the same thing, remembering Bhagwan's Nama. But Bhagwan Nama Smarana is a great way to bring Bhagwan's remembrance throughout the day, at least in my experience. I hope I addressed what you were referring to. Is that
Also, sometime what happens that I assign myself that today at 2 o'clock I will do this. Instead of 2 to 3, I have wasted the time, and 3 o'clock, then I start doing that. I'm too late. How do I change my these habits in the afternoon? In the morning, I'm very alert, 100%. I mean, but in the afternoon, same meda, same thing I am doing. How to not control, but bring my awareness. I have awareness. That's why I'm asking you this
yeah,
question. But
yeah,
how to solve this problem?
yeah. Mm, I understand that feeling. Um, I would say rather if to observe like whatever the mind's natural tendencies and to go slow. Once I had heard Guruji say that um, niyama is good, but too much niyama is also not good. Like ati niyama is also not good. So we have to work within the capacities of the mind. Like maybe 2 o'clock is too early. Maybe we start at 2:30 or 2:45, and then we slowly bring the time back to 2 p.m. Because it takes a while for the mind also to adjust to new practices, right? Like it will be used to doing a certain thing at 2 p.m. Like, for example, at nighttime, our body at 10 p.m. naturally is sleepy. So, similarly, at 2 p.m., the mind may not naturally be focused. So, we give it little bit at a time. Like, we start at 2:45 to 3. Then, after 1 month, we do 2:30 to 3. Like, this slowly, we increase that time. And then you see if that is successful.
Thank you, Aparnaji. Medaji, thank you. Let's see if there are any other questions.
Thank you.
We
Wait,
are
so
coming.
Vibhuji, please let me conclude each question. Thank you so much.
Oh,
I
I'm
will
sorry.
decide.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So,
Good.
Medhaji, were you satisfied with my answer? That's what I wanted to ask.
Very much. Gradually, I will make my mind to work on it.
Yeah.
Make a gradually each footstep I will, instead of I think that, oh, I am hurting, my leg is hurting, I am doing this, I can't walk properly, I'm handicapped 100%. So if I think that way, instead of that, I say, oh, Om Namah Shivaya, Shri Krishna Sanam Mama, something like that, and improve myself and understand that mind in the morning and in the afternoon, the divinity works different ways.
Yes, exactly. Okay, great. I'm glad I could be of help.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody else who has any questions? You can just unmute and ask. I think we're
Yes, Dollyji, go ahead. You can unmute.
Hari Om, Aparnaji, thank you so much.
Yeah.
It was so beautiful. Like we just felt so connected with every single line that you were saying or every single word. It just felt so beautiful. I have a question. I was trying to look back at the verse, but I'm sorry, but I cannot like figure out which verse exactly. But there was in one of these verses earlier on mentioned something about karma phala, like how God is not attached to those karmas or karma phala. And I think as human beings, even if sometimes I feel like I surrender myself 100% to God, and trust in that, trust in the universe and the force of universe, we are always taught like every action has a reaction, and then you just do your karmas best, but don't expect for karma, like, for that phal. But what if somebody does something wrong and you just let it be and you trust in God? And I just was confused there. Like, what happens? Like, how we say um, people will uh, get the answers for their whatever deeds they did. I don't know if I'm making sense.
So if to clarify, you're asking about other people's karma phala, like how do they get the result? I'm sorry, you might have to just make it a little succinct for me. I didn't quite
Right.
understand.
Yeah. Like, let's say you don't react or you just leave it up to God to say, okay, whatever it is, it's going to happen, right? Like, um, but in one of the verses somewhere, Bhagwan was like, I'm not attached to those karmas or karma phalas or action and reaction. So, is there any place where um, that is taken care of? Like, we say that we all pay for our actions and
Yes, yes. Okay, I think I understood. So when Bhagwan says, it's in verse number 9, Nachamam tani karmani nibadhananti dhananjaya. This is only when Bhagwan says this, he's just saying, see, I appear to be doing actions. Bhagwan is talking about himself. He's not talking about all the other bhutas. He's only talking about himself. When I do the creation, sustenance, and dissolution of the world, it has no result on me because I'm beyond all of it. So
right.
that's what he's saying. Now, all of the bhutas, all of the beings that exist in the world, their karma is absolutely controlled by Bhagwan without an exception. He alone is the one who gives Gurudev used to say that Ishvara is the one who decides which blade of grass grows where. That's the level of control. So, yes. So, when he says karmas don't touch me, he's talking about my karmas don't touch me. But all the beings, he holds us very tightly. We don't get even one paisa, 1 cent. We don't get more than we deserve. It's impossible. So that is why we say do your best and leave the rest, because yes, Bhagavan is taking care. In his infinite wisdom and compassion, again, how is he able to take care? Because he is the one who pervades the whole universe, right? The thing that is coming to me as phala, as result, that is Bhagavan. The person who's giving it to me, good or bad or ugly or whatever, that's also Bhagavan. And me receiving it, I am also pervaded by Bhagavan. So how Bhagwan pervades the whole universe, that's why Bhagwan is able to distribute the phalas to whoever deserves it perfectly. But as for Bhagwan's own apparent karma, it has no effect on him because he transcends it all.
Okay. Yes, I think I was referring to verse 9 now that you said it. Yes, it was like a little confusing at the time when we read it. Like, how is Bhagwan saying that he's not affected and it doesn't affect like the karma or the karma phala? So,
Yes, this karma that he's talking about is specifically talking about the creation, dissolution, and maintenance of the world. He's specifically talking about, and he's saying that I do it through my Maya. And it happens all in my Maya. Actually, I'm separate. Remember the desert and the mirage. Creation and everything happens in the mirage. Bhagwan is the desert. This is the point of verse number 9.
thank you
Is
so
it
much.
clear?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I see someone has raised their hand. Mohanji.
Namaste, Aparnaji.
Hari.
Hari Om. If you could give me that shloka's first line, that Aranye,
Ah,
that then I may be able to search for it.
okay, yeah, great. Aranye santi patrani nadyam swadudakani. Swadu udakani becomes swadudakani cha. And then the rest is santi padau cha hastau cha katham naradhyate harihi.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Great. Great. I'm glad you liked the reference because I love it too. Okay. Anybody else has any questions? Wow, look at that. Not 8:58. Right on time.
That's perfect. Thank you so much, Aparnaji. Really appreciate you spending all this time, and to all the bhaktas here, right? Now that term should be in everybody. So thank you. Appreciate that reinforcement on behalf of everybody. Thank you, Aparnaji, for being here and gracing us with such wonderful discussion and satsang. We'll close with our prayers. Vidyaji, I will request
Oh,
you to please.
can I just say one thing? Just one
Yes.
announcement. Yeah, one announcement is that I'm doing classes every Sunday from 9:30 to 10:30 a.m. in Chinmay Mission Orlando in person on Shiva Aparada Kshamapana Stotram. So if you are interested, if you are in town, please do come. It'll be wonderful to study that text also with all of you. Thank you for the opportunity to reflect on chapter 9. That's all from me. Hari Om.
Thank you, Aparnaji. I'm glad you mentioned it. Apologies for forgetting to do that, but appreciate you reminding us. Let's go to closing prayers, Vidyaji. I will share my screen in a second. Too many pages.
ॐ सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत् आनन्दमय चैतन्यमय चिन्मय गुरुदेव आनन्दमय चैतन्यमय चिन्मय गुरुदेव ओंकारमय ह्रींकारमय सत्कारमय गुरुदेव ओंकारमय ह्रींकारमय सत्कारमय गुरुदेव आनंदमय चैतन्यमय चिन्मय गुरुदेव ब्रह्ममय गुरुदेव शिवमय गुरुदेव तपोमय गुरुदेव चिन्मय गुरुदेव चिन्मय गुरुदेव ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः हरिः ॐ श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः हरिः ॐ हरि ओम
Hari Om, everybody. Have a
Hari Om.
wonderful evening ahead and a great week. We'll see hopefully lots of you on Sunday morning and next time we meet. Take care.
Vibhuji,
Om.
Vibhuji, do we
Yes,
have
Medha.
class next Tuesday or summer
Yes.
vacation?
We'll have a class next
We-
Tuesday. We have a few verses to finish. Hari Om, everybody. Take care. I'll send a message, Medhaji.